Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to another episode of Manifesting Muslimah. I'm your host, Zara Pedersen. And today's episode is going to be a really exciting one. And I can't believe I haven't done this before, considering that I'm like 6 months into Manifesting Muslimah already. SubhanAllah, time really moves by quickly. But we're, as you can tell by the title, going to talk about some of the main differences between the teachings of the law of attraction from like a mainstream perspective versus the teachings from an Islamic perspective. And of course, there could be so many more differences when we start looking into like the details, the nitty gritty, things like that. But today I'm going to focus on some of the bigger differences that I need you to look out for when you're watching and consuming or reading a lot about law of attraction from mainstream content creators, coaches, books, things like that, so that you know to be a little bit aware going into what comes next after the creator or the coach says the following things. Okay, so this is going to be an exciting one. Make sure you are ready for what's about to come. I personally find these so comforting to know, and I hope that this episode and what I'm about to share in this episode will give you the same sort of comfort and ease in using the law of attraction and manifesting good things into your life, inshallah. But I'm not going to continue babbling on, because we all know that I could speak for England, for Denmark, for Spain, for Morocco, wherever I am in the world, and probably all of them all together. So I'm going to go straight in with the first main difference, which we of course already know because we're Muslims. It is not the universe that we're asking for these differences or different realities or blessings into our lives. Where the universe, it doesn't create anything for us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the facilitator of the blessings into our lives. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who answers our du'as. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who inspires us to desire certain things in this life. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who will guide us to the things that we're wanting in this life. If it's meant for us, it'll always find us by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so we already understand that and we know that. And if you haven't come across that before and you've been curious about the law of attraction, that is your main difference. That'll stop you from committing shirk. That is the thing. Don't elevate, whether consciously or subconsciously or by accident, the status of the universe or the angels or angel numbers or magic or, I don't know, sprinkling cinnamon dust or whatever stuff, we're hearing online these days. Don't elevate any of that to the status of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't give it any power outside of what Allah has ordained for it to be in control of within its frames. Okay, so we know this is why we're Muslims, and so we're never asking the universe to do certain things for us. We're not asking the universe to create our reality. We're not thanking the universe. We're not making dua to the universe. We're always coming back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, I'm not going to continue on that specific subject, but within this one subject, there is, however, one little caveat that I just kind of want to get into, which is, of course, that the universe still has a role to play within the law of attraction. So while we're not elevating the role and the place of the universe to the level of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which would be shirk, we still have to understand that Allah has created the universe with certain properties, with certain gifts, so that we and the earth and the animals and the plants and everything can exist with in a dynamic that creates the realities for us as we go with Allah's will as the ultimate creator. And I don't even know if I should say the universe. I'm going to continue saying the universe, but ultimately it's probably more like the world, earth, when I'm going to, in regards to what I'm about to say, sorry for the mumbling there, with regards to what I'm about to speak on, which is vibrations and frequencies, because this is, I would say, still in its infancy of our understanding of what this even means and entails. But we in the science world, I say we as if I'm a scientist. Oh my good Lord. We all know I'm not, but I'm just, it's a royal we. I'm allowed to say it that way. I am so far away from being a scientist. It's not even a joke. But anyway, we are only just scratching the surface of understanding the role of frequencies and vibrations as humans with the world, with the universe, And it's actually quite an interesting thing. I can't speak too much into it because I, of course, as I said, I'm clearly not a scientist. So I'm also just kind of surface level understanding this, which is enough. We don't need to know the depths and the ins and outs and the details of this to understand that this is clearly something that Allah has put into place so that we can better operate in from a more elevated position in this earth, from a place of knowing and full awareness, self-awareness, and from a place of not just being in the 3D, from a place of the soul, from the ruh. And this is where I find it so interesting. I'm probably going to do a whole episode just dedicated to this episode, to this specific topic, because I do find it very interesting. So if you're interested in that, please let me know over on Instagram at Manifesting Muslima if you're interested in me kind of delving a little bit deeper into this subject. But that is the level where we are no longer attached to the physical around us, and we're coming from a place that we're still not fully understanding yet, where it's vibrations and energies and frequencies that we're just subconsciously constantly doing, and where we're constantly in communication with the world around us and with each other without even knowing this. And this is so interesting because this is not a standalone thing that only scientists have discovered. This is very much a Islamic principle as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to us, I can't remember if it's in the Quran or in a hadith. I actually believe that it's in the hadith. I am as my servant thinks I am. And that phrase alone, if we're looking at it from the perspective of law of attraction and the role that mainstream coaches give the universe, that is exactly that. You get what you are. So if you believe something of Allah, that is what you're going to get from Allah. If you believe something of, again, this is in mainstream teachings, if you believe something from the universe, that's what you're going to get from the universe, i.e. the universe mirrors. So the law of attraction ultimately is like a mirroring of what you're going around doing all the time and believing all the time, your frequencies, your vibrations, your energy, the vibes that you're constantly emitting. And ultimately, this is such a quantum physics, I think. Is it quantum physics? I don't even know. Kind of, or even, actually just theology could actually also just be the kind of studies that you'd go into to really check this out. Again, I'm not super, literate on this. I'm still learning about it, and I'll probably spend the rest of my life learning about this because I find it so interesting. But it's the same concept. It is the exact same concept that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to his servant what his servant believes of him, and the universe mirroring what we're doing in this dunya, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created that system to work that way. Isn't that fascinating? I don't know. I don't even know if I explained it properly. Can you literally, again, connect with me, reach out over on Instagram, let me know if I'm not explaining things properly, if I'm speaking too fast. That's a hard thing for me to control, to be fair, but I'll try to speak slower if that's a thing. It is just so fascinating to me, and I'm trying my best to explain the concepts because I do understand that they are quite big, these concepts. And if you're new to the world of law of attraction, then this might be a bit out there still, but trust me, put your mind, just take it in, soak it in, write on it, journal on it, pray on it. It's beautiful. Anyway, so I'm not going to continue on with that specific topic anymore because it is, I could continue talking on that. So we're going to go on to the next big difference. Which again, I see a lot of mainstream creators talk about, which is you are the creator of your own reality. Astaghfirullah, you're not the creator of your own reality. There is only one creator, and that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, of course, we can say that goes back hand in hand with the first topic, that is not the universe, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this one, we have to understand as well from our perspective, not whether or not we are putting an elevation on the universe, but also how we're approaching ourselves and our ability to quote unquote create, as the mainstream coaches say, because we are never creating anything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator and the facilitator of our lives. However, we have been given free will to make decisions and choices in our lives, but only with the blessing and the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning, if Allah doesn't want you to do certain things, it will never come to you. It will never happen for you. It's just not going to be a thing. Even if you want it or whatever, it's just not going to be a thing for you because Allah simply knows better and He is the creator. So when you're listening to podcasts about manifestation and law of attraction, or if you're reading books about it and the people say you create your reality, no, you do not. You create the foundation, your belief, your mindset, your perspective upon which you act. So you're looking at, what do I believe? Where is my mindset at? What is my perspective? What is my outlook? And that is the thing that ultimately either fuels the actions that I take or makes me not take the appropriate actions. Because if you fully believe in something and that it's meant for you and it'll come to you, you will likely take the correct steps to get there, because you're like, I know it's going to come, but I know that I also have to do this in order for this to come, right? But if you don't believe in the outcome, then you're probably not going to take the step. Or if you take the step, you're not going to be consistent enough with it, or you're not going to be dedicated to it, you're not going to give it the same energy, whatever it might be. And so you're not going to get the outcome of it. Our belief is what frames our reality in a lot of ways. That doesn't mean we create it, because there's only one creator. Again, we are not divine creatures in that way or anything. We have been divinely created by Allah, and we can argue that we have divine inspiration coming to us, divine desires that Allah has given us, so on and so forth. But we are not creators and we're not divine beings. However, we make decisions based on the divine inspiration that Allah will give us, whether it be that you have an intuition, whether it be that it's just like a knowing, a gut feeling, whether it's a direction, it's Allah sending you signs after you've prayed istikhara. I don't know, it could be so many different things, but ultimately you're not the one who's creating it. Allah is creating it. What you have to do is just take the right actions and put yourself in the right mindset and the mind frame. Make sure your beliefs are also believing. And the belief here, and this is I'm going to come to it again in a little bit, because it's actually in like 2 points. Then I'll come to the next thing, but I'll just kind of skim over it right now, and then we'll go into details when I come to this point. Is that we have to just put all that belief and that responsibility over to Allah, and all we have to do is take responsibility for ourselves and our actions, so making sure that they align. It's kind of like saying I'm Muslim, but just you saying I'm Muslim and taking your shahada or saying your shahada one time doesn't mean you'll go to heaven. You still have to put in work. You still have to make that effort. You still have to make sure that your beliefs are aligning themselves with the ultimate belief that you are Muslim and that there is only one God, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was his messenger. So, I totally butchered that, didn't I? Okay, it's fine. We're not teaching Islam here, right? Anyway, so the point is that we're not creators, but we're responsible for acting in accordance with our belief. And if our beliefs are askewed, if our beliefs are dictated by the limiting knowledge and understanding and awareness of the universe, then the path that Allah is going to open for us is also going to be full of those limitations, because we will never open our eyes fully to the limitlessness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, this is probably another topic for another episode. Let me know. Reach out in the over on Instagram, send me a DM or just write a comment to me, and I'll talk more into that. But ultimately, when you're listening or reading or anything about law of attraction from a mainstream perspective, you'll see so many people using phrases like you're the creator of your own reality, you create the things in your own life, or you're a divine goddess. Oh my God. So many people are like, it's just so, I'm sorry. Okay, let me just, woosah. Because as a Muslim, there's no bigger turnoff when I'm consuming content from another coach than when they start talking that kind of pooey. It really irks me. It just gets to me, because it's just like, to believe so highly of yourself. Astaghfirullah. Anyway, moving swiftly on to the third point, which is that another big difference is that as Muslims, using the law of attraction, we do not set expectations to the details and the outcome. which when you say it that way sounds like, well, then there is no such thing as law of attraction, because law of attraction is setting an outcome, setting a goal. But the thing is, we're setting a goal, and while we have some ideas around how that goal is going to look, we always have to surrender it back to Allah and allow Allah to introduce that goal in the package which is ideal for us, which is perfect for us. Where, again, going back to the other topic where I said, that, what did I say? I'm so sorry. Ramadan brain. Why do I even say that? Shaitan is nowhere near me. Bitch is locked up. So sorry. I can't remember what I was about to say just then. So if it comes back to me, then I'll return to it. So what was I saying? We have the details. Anyway, I was going to say something. I'm so sorry. It completely blipped. Ramadan fasting brain. So I'm a little unsure of what I was about to say. So I'm just going to go off on another topic, or not another topic, another part of this explanation. And then if it comes back to me, it'll come back to me, and we'll trust that it's for the right reasons. So in law of attraction, mainstream teachings of law of attraction, a lot of coaches are like, the detail. And I'm also about the specificity. I love the specificity. But what we don't want is us to get caught up in the details. What we don't want to do as servants of Allah, and trusting in Allah's plan above our plan, and trusting in His understanding of the universe far beyond what we know and see and can perceive of the universe. We trust that Allah's package and the thing that He wants to give us is much better than how we want it. So while we have a divine inspiration, or we feel this, intuition saying, this is what I want for myself, we have immediately, based on our egos, based on our environment, our situations, our backgrounds, things like that, our socioeconomic status, we have already given it a look, this thing that we want. So Allah for instance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me the inspiration to work with Muslim women in doing these teachings. However, He hasn't given me the details of how that looks. So I'm setting up a podcast. In the beginning, I also had a YouTube. I stopped the YouTube because it was too much for me in the beginning. I then had the TikTok. I also have Instagram, all of these things. And I'm trying, I've got the book, I've got the courses, I've got the coaching, I've got the membership. And it's sort of this idea of like, I don't know how you want me to reach the people, but I trust that if I just kind of keep putting something out there, then you will show me which one is the right direction by allowing that to flourish and come more naturally to me, and feel and also you showing me that the people are reaching out. And like for instance, I get messages from some of you listeners who are writing me and like, oh, I listened to that podcast episode and you're giving me your feedback and things like that. That is the confirmation from me. That is me being guided, instead of saying I have to get this message out and I will only do it by my expectation, which is only a YouTube channel, and then limiting myself in the way that the blessing is going to come. So while I love the details, we have to be able, like when we're goal setting, we have to be able to let go of the details at the same time and release our expectations of the thing, so that we can allow for Allah's plan for the thing and how it's supposed to come into our lives to come through. This is the surrender. This is Islam. Ultimately, this is surrendering to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with our whole entire life, and trusting that if Allah wants us to go in a specific direction or something to happen to us, it is because Allah knows that it is best for us, even when sometimes it doesn't feel like the best thing for us. Okay? So when you're setting goals, you want to be detailed, like you want to sort of like have an idea of things, because that'll make you take the action. The details is not for Allah, it's for us, so that we can start taking action. We also have to be ready to let go of the detail of the outcome, the expectation of the outcome. Okay, this is again very much relating back to, for instance, marriage, which I know a lot of you are very keen on that subject, manifesting a husband, which you definitely can do. But there's a releasing of the expectation of the person. Again, releasing the expectation of the person. So you can only ever look at your actions and the details that you can take care of within your own life, but you can never manifest it in another person without the blessing of Allah. We always have to be willing and ready to let go of those details, because we have to trust that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us the thing. I don't actually know if you're listening, but one of my members in my membership who said, one of her non-negotiables for a husband was curly hair. And listen, you know who you are if you're listening. Ya Rab, I hope that man with curly hair comes to you and that's the one that you're going to marry, like that he has curly hair. But, the whole part of this part is, I love the detail. I love a man with curly hair. That's the detail. But the surrendering and letting go of that expectation is to say, but if the right man comes and he doesn't have curly hair, then I'll trust in Allah's plan and I'll let go of my detail. Do you see what I mean? Where in mainstream teachings of law of attraction, you hold on to those details. It's like, no, you don't barter, you don't negotiate, you don't let go of. You have to get it exactly as you said. And if you don't, you've done something wrong. Then there's something wrong with you. And we don't believe in that as Muslims using the law of attraction, because that is us not asking Allah for blessings. That is us telling Allah, give me this. And we're servants. Who are we to tell Allah anything as a demand? So that is a massive difference as well between mainstream teachings of law of attraction versus Islamic teachings of law of attraction. Okay, I'm going to take one more topic and then I'm going to leave you at that, because I also feel like this is actually quite a big subject. I was like, oh, maybe I should do more, because I could, again, as I said, there's so many more differences, but I'm just going to take some of the main ones today. And I was like, maybe I should have done more topics. No. There's clearly enough for me to talk about here. So another thing that is different between mainstream law of attraction teachings versus Islamic law of attraction teachings is that you're not, and this is a beautiful one. So really, if you've kind of not listened to the rest of this episode and you're sort of like waking up now, listen to this part, because subhanAllah, this is the thing that I think as a Muslim using the law of attraction gives me the most hope, and that I'm hoping to give to more people, is that you're not relying on yourself fully. This is not about you and what you're able to create for yourself and what you're able to do and what you're this, that, and no. This is about having full, for a Muslim, it's about having full tawakkul in Allah and understanding that you're not the one who's going to create it, which, let's be real, from a mainstream law of attraction teachings, that is a massive responsibility to have. You're creating your own reality, which means if something bad happens, you're the one who's creating the bad things for yourself all the time, which actually is kind of in line with Islamic teachings. But that it's like a conscious thing for you, and there's only bad in it, whether you want it or not. Whereas in an Islamic way, if something comes to you, it's not a bad thing, because it's from Allah. Everything from Allah is good, and everything bad is from ourselves. So if something happens to you that you're not super aware of in daily world, you'd be like, oh, that's a bad thing. You can change the perspective, change the outlook of things, and see the lesson and be like, yes, that was not an ideal situation, but because I understand that I'm not the creator of the things, that Allah is facilitating certain things based on my belief of the outcome and the world around me. If I change my belief and my mindset, the outcome is going to change. So you see the lesson rather than the bad thing and being like, oh, I need to punish myself because I'm the one who brought this upon myself. You change the perspective to one that is far more full of grace and forgiveness to yourself as a human, as an imperfect creature that Allah has designed and made imperfect for a reason, so that you can learn and grow and evolve, right? And continuously move closer to Allah, inshallah. But it's such a beautiful thing when we're looking at it as well from that perspective, from an Islamic perspective, because it really takes away the pressure from us to be like, I have to create this perfect reality. So if my reality is not perfect, then something is wrong with me. And instead of thinking that, and it's not to say there's something's wrong with Allah, but it's to say, what can I do differently to show Allah that I'm ready for more? So it's not about you punishing yourself or hating on yourself for not creating an ideal reality. It's about you taking the time to evaluate, to reflect upon yourself and the position that Allah has put you in, to say, what could Allah possibly want more from me? And what changes can I do to show Allah that I'm ready for the next step, that I'm ready for this elevation, that I'm ready for this goal, that I'm ready for this amount of money, for the husband, for the children, for the big house. whatever it might be that you're trying to manifest. But I personally believe that it's such a beautiful thing because, again, the responsibility, just imagine if you had to try and figure it out. You know, if you've never been married before, I say that like because like I'm divorced, so I've been married before, so I know kind of like still I'm divorced, so clearly it didn't work out. But if you've never been married before and you don't know how to meet a person and find somebody to marry, and you have to try and figure out, well, how do I connect with a person? How do I know if it's the right guy? All of these things. If you had to know that before you started taking action, you wouldn't take action because you won't know. You will never know for certain how to do these things, but you can know for certain that Allah has created us in pairs, and that if Allah has inspired you to dream and desire for marriage, that He wants you to have it, but that maybe there are certain things that you need to learn within yourself or accomplish within yourself in order to get to that level where you are ready for that kind of commitment and relationship. But it's such a beautiful thing because it removes that responsibility for us of trying to learn how to get the thing. I think for me, personally, this is just my personal experience, which I'm hoping, again, take note on this if I can give you anything in terms of law of attraction and setting goals and how you want to achieve the goal and how you go about, you know, taking the action towards the goal, is remove the responsibility from yourself. You're not relying on your ability to get this thing into your life. You're relying on Allah. And what better thing than to rely on Allah? There is nothing better than Allah to rely upon. So if you're relying upon Allah to bring you the thing, and all you're doing is saying, I have tawakkul, I have full faith and trust that Allah is going to introduce it to me when I'm ready. I'm going to continue taking these necessary steps that I know, like in the physical, in the 3D, is kind of necessary for me to take. Not necessary, but like helps put me at an advantage to receive the blessing easier by knowing more about the topic, by studying, for instance, or putting myself out there in an environment where there are more single men so I can meet a person, or whatever it might be, right? But ultimately, the details of how it's going to come into my life, I'm not relying on myself for that. I'm fully allowing Allah to do what Allah does best, which is create and make the magic happen, create the miracles for us, the things that happen behind the scenes that we do not know or understand, or will never know or understand. So we can just go out there with a mindset and an outlook and a perspective that is so full of hope and full of the possibilities of things that could happen at any moment, not because you created it, but because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained it to be. Subhanallah. I genuinely hope, maybe again, like rewind a couple of minutes, listen to that again, write it down in your own words. This is not about what you're able to create for yourself and the opportunities you're able to bring into your own life. It is about you taking action from a place of full faith and tawakkul, because you have the only, the most magnificent, the all-knowing, all-seeing Creator paving the way for you. Subhanallah. I am going to leave it there on that note. I hope there was something beneficial for you in this episode. I hope that you got some information that maybe you didn't have before or that you needed. Again, please let me know over on Instagram if you have any comments, if you've got questions, suggestions for next episodes. And I keep forgetting to say this, but don't forget to rate and review the show wherever you're listening in from. Write a little note, a little comment, so that other people who stumble upon this show knows what to expect roughly. It does help. It really does help future listeners, inshallah. So anyway, I'm going to love you and leave you there, my darling friend. Until next time, please don't forget to live in love.